Comic Book Community Award finalist voting is available now. Please consider 9-panel grid when voting. Another Wednesday is come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9-panel grid. This week, we've seen death-defying heroics, sentient landforms, and octogenarian time travelers. But we're going to kick things off this week with Ain't No Grave number 5, written by Scotty Young with artwork by Jorge Corona. Man, am I so happy to say that they stuck the landing on this series. This has been absolutely fantastic. Scotty Young keeps evolving and growing as a writer, and I'm just so pleased to see the new stories that he continues to put out, and this is by no means outside of that scope. Ain't No Grave wrapped up beautifully. It told the story that I feel like it needed to tell, and it didn't pull any punches with some of the weightier aspects that they were looking at. On top of that, Jorge Corona is doing some of his career best work. When we start talking about him at the end of the year, when we're talking about the best artists, his name should definitely be at the forefront because I feel like he continues to keep leveling up and growing, both as an artist, but even more so as a storyteller visually. It is so fantastic what he's able to do in this book and what he's showing you that really kind of lets the book flow and become something more than just a prose that it could be, right? It's really the teamwork between Scotty Young and Corona that have made this story so special. And again, they stick the landing. The way that they wrap this up is just pitch perfect through and through. So, Ain't No Grave number 5, fantastic book to consider this week. Next up, let's talk Department of Truth number 25, written by James Tynan with artwork by Martin Simmons. This was the issue that I feel like we've all been waiting for. It was the issue that was really going to tie everything together and kind of be a mission statement for where this book was going to go. And I feel like they accomplished that for the most part. However, for an exposition heavy issue, did they really explain anything? And is that even an issue? Is that a problem? With the nature of this book being about conspiracy theories and fake truths and, kind of willing things into existence, they could really take this book wherever they want to, and stop on a dime and turn. So even being explained some of the things behind, Oswald and his connections with the Department of Truth and our main character and how his, investigation is going and where they're going with this, it doesn't really matter and it doesn't mean anything because, again, it could change at a moment's notice. So it's a little bit exposition heavy. It's a little bit over verbose. It's a little bit verbose. But I think that the artwork of Martin Simmons is what has been and what carries this issue through and through. His artwork really shines. If this had 0 words to it whatsoever, I could still see myself picking up this issue because it's, again, some of the best artwork that I have seen. The way that he's evolved as an artist from looking back at things like Friendo and then comparing it to his work now, it's almost like a sea change. It's almost like a different artist altogether. And I love how he has, kind of leveled up and evolved, and he's has a different approach basically dependent on the project that he's working on. But this is prime Simmons. This is where he's doing his absolute best work. Being that this is based on some of the intertellings of the JFK assassination too, I feel like they work with the historical aspect of this along with the conspiracy theory notions, and they're not just necessarily playing the same song over and over. Considering that we've seen so many different JFK assassination conspiracy theories out there, I feel like it's playing its own tune, although it's kind of honoring some of the things that have been within the societal consciousness, basically. So Department of Truth number 25, I think it actually did really well, and I think it's starting to, pick the series back up more and more. And with our next issue, let's talk The Domain number 3, written by Chip Zdarsky with artwork by Rachel Stott. I kind of love how they're playing with the aspect of this being the comic book within the comic book of public domain, and they're kind of really treating this comic book kind of akin to what happened within Ultimate Spider-Man, where Miles Morales took on the mantle of being Spider-Man and kind of seeing the struggles of a young kid trying to learn how to be a superhero. It's the same kind of aspect they did with Miss Marvel when Kamala Khan became the character as well. they're really playing within that same sandbox, and I think it's working out really well for them. However, I feel like this series, this book, doesn't stand on its own as well as those two other series have. And it might be that they're working within, a universe of characters so you can see interconnectivity. The only interconnectivity that we have with this book is kind of the writers and the artists who are working on the book itself. So I don't know if I could see myself reading this series through and through if it were a standalone book. I think it's a perfectly fine book. I just don't think that it's necessarily telling a story that's new and bold and delivering on different ideas, so much as it's an ancillary book to public domain that kind of shows what those creators are working on and how that translates over to the book itself. I think it's a noble effort, and I think it's something that could get really interesting. However, right now, it's very much, kind of, like I said, working within that same sandbox of ideas here. And it just revolves around the characters, again, finding, these powerful gauntlets from aliens and trying to use them to become superheroes, almost akin to like a Green Lantern kind of story. But again, nothing new, nothing exciting, definitely ideas that we've seen before here. So if you got extra room on the pull list, this might be a good one to add and just kind of test the waters. All right, let's talk Geiger number 6, written by Jeff Johns with artwork by Gary Frank. If you ever told me that I needed an issue from the perspective of the dog within the Geiger universe, I would have laughed at you, and I would have been so completely wrong. This issue was really fantastic. We kind of get to see Geiger's dog deal with what just happened in the previous issues and dealing with the fact that he very nearly died and goes on his own adventure where he meets up with some animals that have also been mutated by the landscape and the radiation that permeates the world of Geiger. And he teams up with them as some poachers and some hunters are really kind of using the zoo almost as a hunting ground. And you see how Geiger's dog really helps them grow and change and defend themselves and kind of bring the fight to the hunters themselves so that they can grow and thrive and kind of keep their land. It was a really fantastic look at at that whole world. It was like the best version of a one shot issue or a standalone issue, looking at a character that we never knew we needed more insight from. Man, like Jeff Johns is really crafting a fantastic world with Geiger and Redcoats and all of the different ancillary characters that they have, like Junkyard Joe. I'm loving what Ghost Machine is actually doing. And this was, again, the perfect example of showing how it's not just telling a story that's kind of running through all the beats that we expect. It's taking time to grow these characters and it's taking time to do things that are, quite frankly, completely unexpected. So, Geiger number 6, awesome issue to pick up. Next up, let's talk Into the Unbeing number 4, written by Zach Thompson with artwork by Hayden Sherman. Man, every time I feel like I know where this book is going to go, it zags when I think it's going to zig. And I don't really necessarily mean that in a good way either. Not that I want a book to be predictable, but it feels like they're just making decisions kind of left and right, out of nowhere, quite frankly. This book, I feel like we get the most character growth and character development out of the 4 issues that we've been presented so far. However, it feels a little bit too little too late, as I already kind of didn't have a level of care for the characters as they were traversing through this sentient landform being. However, like it's just tough. It's difficult to say that I have any kind of care for what happens with them. And each issue has built towards something more horrific or dangerous being presented to our characters. But again, it's like now you're presenting the reason that I should care about them, and now you're kind of developing these characters and make them make hard choices. But this is like the last issue before an extended break, and who knows when this series is going to come back. Hayden Sherman, I think, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here as he's, presenting the story here visually that is very dynamic. It's stunning. It kind of makes you, get drawn in. But as you follow what the beats of the story are, it's a bit of a letdown. So maybe a break is worthwhile. Maybe they kind of need to refocus and regroup and kind of see where they're going to take this. But right now, if this is the end and we do take a break, I just can't say that I'm going to be along for the ride when it does decide to come back. And with our next issue, let's talk Profane number 4, written by Peter Milligan with artwork by Raul Fernandez. I said in previous reviews that each issue has gotten better and better, and this issue kind of continues that trend. At this point, I kind of love living in the world of Coltrane and his investigations and the nature of like what they're crafting within this world, as the writer has created this character who is now a fictional character living in the nonfiction world and investigating the murder of the writer who created him. It's really fun. I love the way that they're playing with the meta notions of what's happening in this. And you can definitely tell that Peter Milligan is playing on real world meta nature things, as the landscape has totally changed within comics of kind of what was expected and what we saw from writers and artists in the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s and even now. So they're definitely leaning and playing on those ideas. And you could even say tropes, but I love how the tropes never become overbearing and they never are, it's never messagey or preachy. It's just kind of like a fun thing that they're playing with and kind of just pointing at it saying, hey, this exists. It's part of our story. It's not the meaning behind our story. Raul Fernandez is still doing excellent artwork on this, but I gotta say, Javier's artwork on the covers of these are absolutely fantastic. The covers, each and every issue, have been just stunning pieces of work. I love the way that they're playing, again, with all the ideas that I spoke about, but playing with those meta natures visually as each character is kind of upon each other and part of each other. They're really, really cool to look at. But again, the detective tropey nature of this, they continue to play with every single idea, but it's never something that's predictable. It's never overbearing. And I'm just, quite frankly, loving what Profane is doing. And I can't wait to see how they conclude this with the next issue. Next up, let's talk Spider-Man Reign 2, number 3, written and drawn by Kari Andrews. Plot holes be damned, this was a fun issue. I love what Andrews is doing here as he's evoking the nostalgia of the 90s, both with what he is actually writing and drawing, as he's like really leaning into the idea of like a McFarlane-esque look with the drawings that he's doing. It really kind of pulls and on those 90s heartstrings, and I love it. This story is really evolving and growing into something that was completely unexpected. I kind of had an anticipation towards where he was going to go with this, having read the first Spider-Man Reign series, but this totally changes everything. And this issue in particular absolutely changes everything. It was revealed that Mary Jane is alive and well in the past, but now she is also the host of the symbiote for Venom. And we learn a lot of different things about what Peter Parker has done, both in the past, present, and the future here, as there's a little bit of a cycle that gets revealed here that I don't want to spoil, but it's definitely worthwhile. The visuals on this continue to be stunning. They continue to be kinetic and action packed. And it really starts to make me wonder, seeing that Spider-Man has always kind of been a multiversal character. We've had the Spider-Verse in the comics. We've had the hugely popular Spider-Verse movies. I'm wondering now if this is going to have multiversal consequences here. Read the issue, be part of the panel, leave me a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this, because it's definitely got my gears turning. But overall, Spider-Man Reign 2 number 3 has been absolutely excellent. All right, let's talk Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 2, written by Jason Aaron with artwork by Raphael Albuquerque. I didn't think I was going to read this issue, let alone enjoy this issue, because issue 1 kind of left me with a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. But I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised. Maybe it's just that Mikey's, adventure seems to be more endearing and more, I don't know, exciting than Raphael's was in issue number 1. But I think it just was. I think that the story that they were telling here was fun. It kind of still had the weighty aspects of the brothers being separated and them longing to kind of be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again, and for life to be simpler like it was when they were just living in the sewers. I think it was more well crafted in this issue, and it kind of gave us more meat on the bone than issue number 1 did. Mikey is now kind of in the limelight. He's kind of like a Hollywood star, and it's not necessarily meshing with the party dude that we kind of know from the cartoons and what he's evolved from the Eastman comic books up until modern day right now. One of the things I really appreciated, though, is most people who like the Turtles have read Last Ronin. I like that there is kind of callbacks, if you could say that, kind of towards that series and how Mikey is dealing with not being around his brothers. I feel like there's kind of a cool symbiosis between this book and the Last Ronin itself, and maybe kind of they just play along with each other. It was a really effective issue, and in fact it kind of reinvigorated my love for the Turtles a little bit, or at least my excitement level for this series. So I'm gonna kind of pick up the pieces here, see where the series takes us, as we got two more Turtles to kind of have their singular issues. The only thing that's really a downside is this continues to feel like it has prequelitis. This is like, this should have been the series before the series and not necessarily issues number one and number two. Maybe this could have come out as a trade paperback, and then we jump into the true series where the Turtles are back. Time will tell on that. Hindsight will be 2020. But for right now, this at the very least was an enjoyable issue. All right, let's talk Ultimate Black Panther number 8, written by Brian Edward Hill with artwork by Stefano Caselli. Ultimate Black Panther is kind of just felt like the most important book amongst the Ultimate line, as they continue to play not only with Wakanda, but they're playing with the Ultimate world as it is, and they're playing with things that could be world impacting to that universe. This issue is no different, as we've seen kind of the nature of vibranium be called into question and what it truly is. Now we're seeing what people can do truly with vibranium outside of the scope of weapons, suits, technology. There's a whole different idea that's being played with now, and I think that Brian Edward Hill is really kind of letting that idea build and grow, but not necessarily just delivering it in all in one fell swoop. I think this is going to be like a slow evolution as time goes on. I love the characterization that we're dealt here within this issue, as we continue to see T'Challa struggle with being a king and be a protector and also be a superhero. We see Okoye kind of deal with being a wife and be the queen to a nation. And, the threats that they're dealt with too, they continue to kind of be ever present, as Moon Knight now has control over the Wakanda people. And they are truly fighting the Black Panther, and he's doing everything in his power to make sure that he is the protector of them, even though they are continually attacking him. So really cool ideas that they're playing with. I like how, again, that this whole series continues to like really build up the character of T'Challa and all the ancillary characters too. And I gotta say, the tease at the very end, as Killmonger and Storm kind of meet with another individual to have a better understanding of not only vibranium but the other material that they have learned about in previous issues. Let's just say I'm super excited to see where this is going to take us, because now the Ultimate Universe is going to expand even further and grow, and we're going to get more characters that we haven't seen yet. So, Ultimate Black Panther continues to deliver. Next up, let's talk Uncanny X-Men number 2, written by Gail Simone with artwork by David Marquez. I genuinely enjoyed this issue so much, and I've been very trepidatious with every new X book that's come out with the relaunch, and now it's starting to feel like Uncanny X-Men has the most firm footing on what it wants to be and what message they're trying to deliver. I love how they're kind of a little leery about being X-Men. They don't know their place in society as mutants. They don't know their place in society as superheroes. And I feel like they're starting to kind of develop a mission statement for who they want to be. And it's not because it's written that way. It's because it feels like it's a natural progression of the characters themselves. I feel like Gail Simone isn't forcing anything. She's really truly taking that natural progression, and it's so appreciated as a reader of the book because it just feels natural. The artwork on this continues to be fantastic. I think that David Marquez, it feels like he took a break from comics for a little bit too, and I was so excited to see him back in books. Again, it continues to be really stylistic, a really great look at these characters. I think he's a perfect fit for the X-Men books itself, and I just kind of love what they're doing with these characters. Rogue feels right. Remy feels right. Wolverine feels right. And now that we're starting to build what this team will be, with Jubilee now coming into the fold, everything is just feeling like it fits perfectly. I'm going to be along for the ride for this book. I didn't think that any X book was really going to pique my interest. This one absolutely is, though. So if it's not on your pull list, consider pulling it on there. Oh, I was so positive over a mutant book just a second ago, and I kind of have to be a downer now. Let's talk about Wolverine #1, written by Saladin Ahmed with artwork by Martin Cuccolo. This feels just disconnected. All of the positives I was just speaking towards in Uncanny X-Men don't flow naturally and don't hit the same way within the pages of Wolverine. The idea is there, and I feel like what they're trying to deliver could be there, as I kind of want a solo Wolverine book. I'm yearning for a solo Wolverine adventure that is outside of the scope of an X book, and it's here, but it doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense in the timeline of what's happening, and it doesn't make sense for the characters that are being developed and kind of like interwoven within the storyline. This is all about Wolverine post Krakoa, living in the wilderness, kind of just being almost like the same version of himself he was post the Weapon X project, as he's living in the wilderness with wolves and he's kind of just reconnecting with nature and kind of being more in tune with the animalistic nature of himself. That doesn't work fully, and we know, of course, that he was always going to be called back into the fray as a superhero and as a member of the X-Men. But again, just like how everything felt natural within Uncanny X-Men, everything feels forced in this issue. We're met up with Nightcrawler as he is looking for Logan and trying to pull him back into the fray. And again, none of it feels natural. None of it feels earned or, I don't know, even respected, honestly. The artwork is sound. I really like what Martin Cuccolo was doing in the pages of Immortal Thor, and I really think that he's delivering in the pages of this book as well. But again, I feel like the story is a letdown. It just feels kind of like both tired and just kind of a rehash of what we've seen previously within the pages of Wolverine a multitude of times now. And I think that we're at a point now where we should be getting new bold ideas with this character, as there's so much fertile landscape to kind of look towards. The guy's basically immortal. He's been throughout history forever. Like, let's play with some of those ideas. Doesn't seem like we're going to be hitting any of those notes right now, though. So maybe it needs more time to marinate and grow. But right now, Wolverine was a bit of a letdown for me. And with our runner up pick of the week, let's talk Transformers #12, written by Daniel Warren Johnson with artwork by Jorge Corona. I keep doing this for some reason. I keep just peeking into the Transformers book, and every time I take a peek, I love what I'm seeing. This book is energetic. It is exciting. It's playing with the aspects of war and loss and sacrifice, and it's doing so not in a way that panders to younger readers, considering that this is a Transformers book and it's at the very least a little bit aimed towards a younger audience, but it doesn't pander to them and it doesn't like write down to a younger audience at all. But I can't figure out why this book is not getting its hooks in me, because I flat out loved this issue, and the last time I reviewed an issue, I flat out loved that issue. In fact, it was the one where Jorge Corona first took over artist duties. And I gotta say, just like I spoke about with Ain't No Grave, Jorge Corona is doing absolutely fantastic work. He is bringing his own flair to the look of this book, and you can definitely tell it's Jorge Corona. But again, comparing Ain't No Grave against this, as far as the artistic duties, you can definitely tell there is a gritty, textured version of his inks that he's bringing forward in the pages of Transformer, where it's a smoother, different approach in Ain't No Grave. Same artist, different approaches, both equally fantastic. I just love the way he's emulating the look and feel that Daniel Warren Johnson first kind of brought forward in the first couple issues of this. And again, kind of kept it wholly his own. But man, I loved this issue. It was just fantastic, where the things that they're playing with and the way that they're respecting the reader each and every issue that I've read so far has got me like totally reconsidering why I'm not reading this book. This is going to be added to the pull list. This is probably going to be a book that I continue to review from here on out, because I was completely blown away with what they did in this issue. And with our top comic of the week, to no one's surprise, let's talk Precious Metal #4, written by Darcy Van Polgeest with artwork by Ian Bertram. This is just the series that continues to get better and better and better. I love what the team is doing with the storytelling of this book. First and foremost, let's go ahead and say it. The axe is back. Holy crap, was I so excited to see the interconnectivity now between Little Bird and Precious Metal. We're kind of seeing these characters in the past connecting and having this adventure. And it was so awesome to kind of like, I don't know, just have those feelings again and see like, oh, there it is. There's the axe. He's back now. It was awesome. I love the way that they rendered that and how they revealed it within the story itself. In this issue in particular, we start to like kind of see more of the nature of these mods and these powers that some of these people have, and maybe how they've come to fruition and how they play into, both our main character, but also the boy that he is after and who he's been actively trying to rescue throughout this entire series. They're really playing with big ideas, and I feel like Darcy is giving us just enough answers each and every issue to keep us enticed. But with every answer that we're delivered, we're given a new question, and it's really making the reader think about things, and it's really making people recontextualize and go back. This is going to be one of those rewarding series that with each issue, you kind of go back and you relook at the previous issues and you like look at the pieces that maybe you missed or maybe some of the clues that were delivered. Really, it's a thinking book, and I love that, and I appreciate it because it's going to be one of those things that, again, like you appreciate more as time goes on. And we're not even at the end of this yet, which is just so wonderful because we're going to get to continue to enjoy this and kind of go back and relook at those issues more and more and more. Precious Metal is just the series that keeps delivering. This is an issue that's going to keep delivering here, and it was just fantastic and totally worthwhile for the top comic of the week. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.